It gives me a particular pleasure to open and host the third conversation of the series Made in Italy, Shaping the World, here in Singapore. Through these events organized by the embassy with the crucial support of Bloomberg, Singapore and other partners like EuroCham tonight, we aim at different objectives. First, we want to give visibility to Italian businesses and business leaders in a vibrant and conducive ecosystem like Singapore. Italy is well known for its lifestyle, but probably is less known for being the second largest manufacturing economy in Europe and the fifth in the world, a champion in circular economy, a powerhouse in technology and innovation, an undisputed leader in many domains, from industrial machinery to pharma, from space technologies to food and food processing. Second, we want to strengthen economic bonds between Italy and Singapore. We are already close partners in many ways. The further expansion of these relations, of cross-border bilateral investments, of opportunities in trade, thanks to the EU-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, will contribute to the respective growth. So much more in an economic juncture affected by uncertainty and multifaceted challenges. In this regard, today's conversation appears very timely. In a few days, in fact, the President of the Republic of Singapore, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, will pay a visit to Italy and will hold meetings, official meetings, with our President Sergio Mattarella and with our Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. While the Minister of State for Trade and Industry, Alvin Tan, who is also in the delegation, will make a call to our Deputy Minister for Made in Italy Industry and Trade, Valentino Valentini. So after the conversation, which took place in this very room in February with Manfredi Catella, CEO of Coima, focused on urban regeneration, and in April with Carlo Luzzatto, CEO of RINA, focused on shipping, it gives me a particular pleasure tonight to turn into private equity as a way to support industrial growth and value creation through capital, expertise, operational focus, and global platforms. This is, in fact, the mission of Investindustrial under the guidance and responsibility of Mr. Andrea Bonomi. Andrea Bonomi is Investindustrial's founder and chairman. Is chairman of Investindustrial Advisory Board. Investindustrial is a leading European investment firm with 13 billion euros of raised fund capital. Prior to founding Investindustrial in 1990, Mr. Bonomi was responsible for the Safa Group, a diversified industrial holding company, and its investments in Europe and the US. Prior to Safa, he worked at Kleinworth Benson in London, where he was responsible for Spain and Italy, and at Lazare Frères & Co. in New York. Mr. Bonomi has been a private equity investor for over 30 years and has served as chairman of director of several industrial and financial companies, including Banco Popolare di Milano, Rizzoli Corriere della Sera Media Group, Permast Elisa, 21 Investments, 21 Centrale Partners, and Inversiones Ibersuizas. He's a trustee of New York University, a member of the NYU President's Global Council, and was inducted into a Private Equity Awards Hall of Fame in 2018. This conversation would not be possible without the contribution of a top-notch discussant, Nele Cornelis, Executive Director of the European Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. Nele has been leading the executive team and overseeing daily operation of the Chamber since 2017. Under her visionary leadership, the Chamber has undergone a significant transformation, focusing on sustainability, innovation, and digitalization. During her tenure, 13 industry and topic-driven committees have flourished, along with active engagement from 14 national business chambers in Singapore. Cornelis' leadership has also expanded the Chamber's advocacy work, effectively representing European companies' interests to stakeholders, including European and Singaporean authorities and policymakers. In 2019, she was elected Vice President of the European Business Organization's Worldwide Network, a prominent advocate for European businesses in 53 countries. Prior to her role as Executive Director at EuroCham, Nele held the position of Executive Director at the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, despite being Belgian. And before her relocation to Singapore in 2008, Nele spent the majority of her career working for prominent media companies in Europe and the US, including the Baltimore Sun, Chicago Tribune Company. She holds a master's degree in business administration from HESAL Management School in Brussels and a bachelor's degree in mass communication from Arte Velde University in Ghent. Again, many thanks to Andrea Bonomi, Nele Cornelis, and to you all for animating this series with such a surely stimulating and interesting conversation. And without further ado, I will ask Nele and Andrea to join the podium. Thank you very much.
A warm welcome, first of all, to you all. And of course, a warm welcome to Mr. Andrea Bonomi. Welcome also to Singapore. You just told me it's not your first time, but you will enjoy the nice views of Singapore, just like you maybe did in the first time, and you were mostly impressed. But when you look at the growth of Singapore and how the landscape have changed, I think that is the best way to discover Singapore and looking how
Absolutely.
The landscape have been changing.
I come twice a year, and it's always a wonderful experience.
Welcome. So, Mr. Bonomi, you are CEO and founder of Investindustrial, which an ambassador already mentioned. It's a company that was established in 1990. And your company has now an impressive capital raise of more than 13 billion euros. And you have 8 offices globally, in New York, in London, Luxembourg, Madrid, but also here in Asia, in Shanghai, and just recently in Abu Dhabi, with 60,000 employees all over the world. So with all your companies, with a focus on companies in healthcare, but also consumer goods, services, manufacturing. You have amongst your portfolio Aston Martin, Ducati, Ermenegildo Zegna, just to name a few, and that is, I must say, quite impressive. The ambassador also introduced your company and yourself with a frontrunner in what we call the Anglo-Saxon investment methodology that you introduced in Southern Europe. Now, I would like to ask you, Mr. Bonomi, could you share what was your inspiration first to be the founder of your company, Investindustrial, and what does it actually entail, the Anglo-Saxon methodology? Because I'm not really an expert in that, so maybe you can explain that a little bit. And then maybe my third question is, and it's not widely known, but you are also a licensed jet pilot. So maybe you can make a bit of a parallel between what is the needs and the skills required for piloting and what are the skills needed for successful investment strategies.
So if I start with the first question, why create Investindustrial? It was on a perceived difference. All the capital that invested in private equity 30 years ago was in Anglo-Saxon countries. And their perceived knowledge of Europe and Italy was much lower. So the goal was to have Anglo-Saxon investors invest in Italy and do so by following what is their methodology. So we have the procedures, the regularity, the compliance, which was Anglo-Saxon at that time. It doesn't mean an Anglo-Saxon approach is better or worse. It means that there is a consistency in the way you approach the market. Now, that was very innovative then. Today, most successful private equity investors have either a regulatory environment, which exists today, which didn't exist then, or an approach which I would define Anglo-Saxon. On the other side, the companies needed the support to globalize. So that was the reason. That was the reason for starting Investindustrial. So we focus on Southern Europe mainly. We focus across Europe because you mentioned Aston Martin. We own Jacuzzi in the United States. We also have other businesses, but most of our investments are in Southern Europe, which is where we are by far the largest investor. So that was the first and the second question, the Anglo-Saxon approach. The third one on piloting, I think anything which requires skills and studying and respect for the environment is important. When you fly an airplane and when you drive a private equity firm, which has responsibility to definitely our investors. Our investors are our first responsibility, but you also have a number of plants. We have more than 200 plants around the world, etc. You know, you need to plan. You need to be able to see what is coming ahead. So I think flying, piloting helps, but so would sailing or synchronized swimming probably. But you know, in my case, it was piloting.
Thank you. So planning, looking ahead are key elements, but and indeed your companies and the big brand names Ducati and Aston Martin, these strategic investments have gained attention not only in Europe but also globally. So I would like to ask you how you make your decision, and I know you are a third generation of your family business, so can you reveal a bit of your secrets, how the decision-making process is done when you select companies to invest in? And then my next question is looking at the future as well. How do you see in the next 5 years the private equity industry evolving, and especially also looking into new technology, emerging technologies that are available in the decision making, for instance? What can AI and Gen AI mean for, can they be advantage for the decision making in a successful investment strategy?
We concentrate only on companies which have a lot of white space, a lot of you know, the potential from a global point of view, which is pretty much the definition of every successful mid-market European company. Usually, these are companies which dominate their home market, which is usually Europe, are already very strong in the United States, which is our main market for our companies. The biggest single market is the United States. And I can give you an example on Ducati in a second, or any of our other portfolio companies. Ducati is no longer a portfolio company; it's part of Audi now. We turned around and grew Ducati, and now it's no longer in our portfolio. But it's the important thing. So once you concentrate on mid-market companies, you have the US very strong, and you have the Middle East and Asia, which is barely touched. So you need to keep a perspective and experience to be able to see the reality for these companies. So when you look at a company in Europe, when you look at a company you want to invest in, it's very important to understand the core values of this company, or what you can build on, and not to transform them into purely financial assets. European mid-market companies do not respond well to being treated as a mere financial asset. These are companies in the mid-market that require the support of an investor, financial resources and operational resources to achieve their goals. We own Italy, which I can use as an example. Italy, for those of you who don't know it, it's a leading Italian, it's an ambassador, if you want, in a sense of Italian food. So it's trying to bring Italian food around the world, both in restaurants and in products, very successful in the United States. As I mentioned before, most of our EBITDA is already in the United States, and most of our future is here in the area. So when you look for a company, you are now faced with white space, which you have to address, how to support them to get to this. And the beauty, especially in Asian opportunity, is that you do not invest in this. So if you're an Asian investor and you like Asia and you buy an Asian company, you are buying a multiple of that value. If you buy an Italian company, a leading Italian company, you get Asia opportunity for free. So if you invest in Italy, we do have 5 stores in Japan, 3 in Korea, actually 8 in the Middle East, none in China. So you're getting that for free. So your ability to globalize those companies where you will make your value. And this, the beauty in today's environment is that is within your control. So when you look at a company, you need to look at the opportunities today, not at the static, not at the leverage, not at the debt you can put on a company. You need to look at the opportunity and how to get there. And that will ensure that the funds that you invest on behalf of your investors are successful.
Okay. So I take away looking...
AI, I forgot to address that.
Yeah.
You were about to ask me that again.
No. Go ahead.
So I'll do on AI. When you look at a company, it doesn't matter where it is today, its history is very confused. You know, its numbers are very polluted. You had COVID, you had the exit from COVID, you had companies stocking up on raw materials because they thought the raw materials were going up. You have the companies destocking because the cost of capital has gone up. You've had the geopolitical event, regulatory event hitting you all of a sudden. So when you look at a company, it's very, very difficult. Very difficult. And all this data, in the past, you drew a line and pretty much the future, if you were growing, you could do it. You can no longer draw a line on the performance of a company because of all this. So you have to go into data. So you have to go into data analytics. We have 7 people which concentrate on this, and you have a lot of data in companies. You know, we are the world leader in high-end bottle caps, so we can see the just-in-time sales of whiskey companies, of tequila companies in the United States. So you have the data whether people are trading up or down. You have restaurants around the world. You have so you can see whether people are spending up or down. So you can see a lot of trends. You buy containers. You have a lot of information. AI is essential for us to be able to analyze. It's a competitive advantage that a large private equity firm can have. So AI is going to be very important. We already use it on legal, or our contracts are checked by AI. We do 2 acquisitions a month for add-ons for our investee companies, which may be far away. You know, we bought a business in China a few weeks ago. We need to make sure that all our contracts comply, and AI will go through this. So that, for instance, we already use it. We use it there. But where we use it most in our operation improvement team, it's to go through this data and to be able to analyze it. And this will become more and more a differentiating factor, because then you sell it to the mid-sized company, not sell it physically, but you become part of the Investindustrial family. We can support you in your decision making because we have invested in AI ahead, because we use our scale. You mentioned the number of employees, but the number of companies. We have about 8 billion in sales in food ingredients, food machinery, etc. You have enough companies that you can build the scale to support them. I think this will be AI will be one of the future competitive advantages that size gives you.
Thank you. And I take away that you said look at the core value of the business and look for the opportunities with, yes, the support of new technologies. But you also tapped into my next question about challenges that also these mid-sized companies face, especially through the shift of global economic landscapes, but also geopolitical tensions. And the companies will have to address challenges like, for instance, the supply chain disruptions. So according to you, Mr. Bonomi, what are the major economic or geopolitical trends that will have an impact on global business? And why is it still important for mid-market private equity firms to still remain and believe in a global presence and to continue to invest in a global investment strategy?
If you look at the news today, there is a lot of news about the end of globalization. but you can see it here in Singapore. There's absolutely no end in globalization. There is an acceleration of globalization. For all companies, globalization remains the key driver. And for us as citizens, as people, globalization, most people in this room are international in nature. Globalization remains our key driver. What is true is that there is, we use all the words badly today, not today here, but in general. It's not deglobalization, it's de-risking. So obviously, if you have a world which is globalized, and this globalization cannot be reversed, in my view, but you have a world which is globalized without any control, without any checks and balances. So when you look at any product of our companies, and you look at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, or the bottlenecks that exist, you start noticing that there are geopolitical events that could cause some serious issues in the production of certain products. Now, for governments, obviously, this means they have to be careful from defense and other issues. We're not in defense, but there is a de-risking of the supply chain, which should have always been there. It should have always existed, but sometimes it was not possible to do it. On the other side, the collaboration, the wealth of nations, the future of the wealth of our citizens also comes from globalization. So I think you need to look at globalization in an opportunity and a risk. So you de-risk what is risky, and you build on what is. So I think that's the biggest challenge, because it also means for industries rejigging some of the production plants, and it is a lot of work because you have to undo certain things and change them. Italy is benefiting from this because of our industrial powerhouse is mainly on light industry, on items which cannot be done anywhere else. So it's not, the Germans have much more heavy industry, and when you look at their powerhouses, Volkswagen, car plants, steel mills, etc. Ours is a much more nimble, so it's a great opportunity for Italy today.
Thank you. And also, we talk about mid-market firms, but it entails also family businesses, of course. And I have to say, I agree, there is still an appetite with family businesses to go global, also here in Singapore. I'm absolutely convinced also for the Italian companies, but here in Singapore, after the COVID, there were a lot of Chinese and Indian companies that actually have established their headquarters here in Singapore. And I'm talking about a number of more than 2,000 companies. So what challenges and opportunities do you see for European mid-market private equity firms looking into the expansion to Asia and South Asia, and also for family businesses? And on the other hand, how does your company Investindustrial value propositions appeal to Asian investors? So what benefits can your company provide to Asian companies when you invest in it?
On the question of family businesses, there is, the vibrancy of Europe, of Italy, is very similar to here in Asia. It's been built on family businesses. So we share the same values. I mentioned before that businesses in Europe, and especially in Italy, have a business reason and a heart, which is why people buy our products. You can feel it when you look at an Italian product. When you see a Ducati, you can feel it's been built with something more than just economic logic, and that is very important to be maintained. You can't turn, a country which produces something quite unique into something which is just mere cash flow. And families want to do these bridges. They're ambitious for their companies. They are, they have dreams for their companies, but they sometimes don't have the means or the support. So building bridges with Asia is the key event for these companies right now. And the same for us. It's hard. There's different culture, etc. But you need to keep investing. So today we have 20 colleagues around Asia that work to support these companies. Or each one of these companies, you mentioned Zegna, Tom Brown, Tom Ford, each one of these companies already has an important presence in the area, but it is a tenth of what they could do. So for us, Asia is very, very important. The same thing for the Asian companies, if you look at their presence in Europe, is not all that it could be. So building the bridge works both ways. And families, especially in family offices in the sense from an investment point of view, are diversifying their exposure. But by diversifying their exposure, by investing in Europe, they are building bridges with what is today, Europe remains, one of the largest economies in the world, and will remain so in the future. So that, I think, for family businesses, they are at the forefront. We're just, because families are by definition mid-size, we're just struggling to find the scale to do it. And this is where we, as private equity, can play an important role, because we have the dimension. Investindustrial grows by about 2 billion a year. 2 billion means businesses, means relationships, means scale, and ever increasing scale. So we can be that bridge. I think that private equity, financially driven to make a return, is something of the 80s. Now you have to build a business, and therefore you have to have relationships.
And I have a name for what you describe as the extra dimension when you look at the design of Ducati. It is craftsmanship and quality. And in particular, we see that with products from Italy, and it has been endorsed globally, especially also here in the region in Asia. But what is then this unique edge, and how can Italian brands and European brands stand competitive in other major markets like China and other parts of Asia? Maybe short comment on that.
Well, Italy has a great position in the world, a great position in Asia. If you have 60 million people dedicated to manufacturing, I would say premium product, but not in the sense for premium product, but we are, as a nation, we are proud and concentrated on our production. The globe is your friend. It is, the future of Italy for Italian businesses is around the globe. We are a country of immigrants. Sometimes we emigrated out of necessity, and sometimes we emigrated out of opportunity to build a better future for ourselves and our family. But that immigration has brought us great goodwill around the world. We have made friends over many generations, and the future of Italian industry is bright because we are part of this globe and because we're open people. So I think you're going to see Italian craftsmanship keep raising up. And you mentioned other countries in Europe. If you look at the most performing luxury brands, they are Italian. If you look at the manufacturing of luxury, is in Italy. If you look, much more than any other country, in Europe, because of this innate sense of love for the product that Italians have, which you can't invent. You can't think of it in a sort of in a piece of paper. If you look at the companies that we have in the portfolio from Italy right now, that was a dream of bringing Italian food, and each supplier to the Italy stores has a dream for his or her product first, and they obviously want to make money second. But
Thank you. I want to bring a bit the discussion to another critical focus for the businesses today. It's about ESG and sustainability. So also very important for your company, Investindustrial has shown already a commitment to environment, to social and governance criteria in your investments. But how do you see ESG considerations being integrated into investment strategies or private equity firms? And what impact do you believe this will have on a long term of doing business successfully?
Here too, you have to look at, there's been a lot of discussion whether ESG is right or wrong for an investor. Your duty of care is to the pensioners, endowments, shareholders that are behind you. And I absolutely agree. Performance on behalf of our investor is the most important element. It is not in disaccord with ESG. Not only is it not in disagreement with this, ESG is key for a successful company to be, I would say, future-proofed. So any company that you invest has a massive ESG question on it. We mentioned before Ducati. Is there a future for reciprocating engines, etc.? So it's key for Ducati. We make bottle caps. How much is the waste on a bottle cap? Are bottle caps being acceptable? We make them out of aluminium. So is it acceptable from an ESG point of view going forward? So ESG is key to every decision to make money and to build a better company. The byproduct you build a better world, but that's is a byproduct. So I don't think there is any discrepancy between running a good financial business and being ESG compliant and leading in ESG. In the case of Investindustrial, we have the highest B Corp rating of any private equity firm, which doesn't do impact as its only driver. We've been carbon neutral for more than 15 years as a firm. ESG is one of our flagship operational improvement that we bring to companies. And it's not in disagreement with making superior return. I think ESG increases your returns and also focuses the mind. When we started with ESG, when you spoke to a chief executive, he would say, I am within the law. The question is not to be within the law, is to be within where the world is going as a way of doing business. ESG is super important, and Europe investors in Europe is leading in this. Some people are doing it because they want to save the world, but it is a way of polluting without pollution is obviously only one of the elements. Without any regard is not going to be a good business model in the future.
Yes, and I want to share also for the European Chamber, it's very much high on the agenda, and as a platform for dialogue, we always say it's not only the responsibility of one particular entity or vertical, it is a collaborative effort from private and public sector, but also from all of us. So, we very much support that as well. Apart actually from your business achievements, I want to go a bit in another direction, and that's your deeply involvement also in academia. You're actually in the board of the New York University. And I want to, in that frame, I want to ask a question, how you would see the future of education, because for everything what we discussed today, new technologies, going into a green agenda, we need skills for that. We need future skills. So how do you see for young talent, the young generation, what do they need for skills and what the education should look like to be successful in the evolving job market of tomorrow? Education
is the key for the base for the future of all our nations. You know, it's when you look at the changes on the job requirements, education is struggling to keep up with the shifts. So, you know, if you went back, you know, even 10 years ago, people wanted to go into banking and they wanted, you know, there were a certain skill set. These are no longer useful. So that means that all our education framework needs to change. So it is top of the agenda for many governments. I think the main thing is also the cost of education. The cost of education is just too high in university, which are, if you want, private. Not because they're businesses, but it is, you know, for kids to have access to education is going to be a key driver. And the universities and the schools will have to deal with also technology, because you can have, you know, it hasn't happened yet, but you can have universities which start going more online, and you could change the cost structure completely, you know. Then obviously you wouldn't get the experience that you get from the community, the camaraderie, and building that. But the education is going to be one of the big questions for everybody in the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Bonomi, for this sharing. And I think it's now time to go to the second part of the dialogue. And I'm looking now at the audience because it's time for a Q&A. So I would like to invite, if you have a question, to raise your hand. I see there is a microphone, so that will be handed to you.
Thanks. So you mentioned that you, as a private equity firm, need to build a bridge and make sure that the company expands or build on the relationships that you have. But I would be interested in understanding a little bit more how you get organized with senior, let's say, figures, senior people that can help you, like they call it operating partners usually. So do you have like a group of people that is around the world that you call for giving you advice? Because at the time when you do a buyout or when you do growth, at the end you need to reestablish C-suite, or you need to count not only on the board but also on the management of the company that you want to build and go towards a certain direction.
The most difficult skill set for our type of private equity, which when we look at globalizable companies, is the human issue of time for the manager, the private equity professional, and the industrial advisor, the operating partner. The manager has a ton of issues. He manages usually already a successful company, so when he goes to the office in Italy, he's got 2,000-3,000 employees in his main plant, and then he's got the European issues, then the supply issues, the US issues, and he does not have the time, he or she does not have the time to deal with Asia or the knowledge. So you go for a professional which is in his 50s or 60s, so he's experienced, but he doesn't have, you know, new technologies, or so you surround him with operational partners that bring this. But it's still the focus is to get him to have the headquarters. I'm talking about Asia specifically, to have the headquarters, perhaps even of the entire group, but especially of their Asian business here, and those headquarters to have the reputation and standing at the home office. Because you can have industrial partners locally, but they also need to be listened to centrally. That is the biggest challenge. A mid-market company has the potential, but not the ability to get to this. So key is to have an operational improvement team, in our case is almost 40, that drive that. And they're not in their core area, because anyway, he knows Italy. He's been there for all his life, so Yoshi.
Thank you very much for your views. I have two questions. First is, if you compare yourself to KKR, what would you say is the biggest difference between you and KKR? And second question is, I didn't know that you are an investor in Eat Italy. I like it a lot. I actually saw it, funnily enough, several years back in Istanbul when I saw there. And how are you planning to also roll it out in Asia and Singapore, for example? Because I think it could be successful here.
Absolutely. So the two parts is how we're different from KKR. we're different in the sense that most large private equity houses which are global raise money locally for the local market. So KKR would have, they are a great firm, but they would have KKR US, KKR Europe, KKR Asia. In our case, when you look at all these offices, we work as one team, one dream, in the sense that our company, the Italian may be essential to do the deal at the beginning, but the American or the Shanghai office could be essential to globalize that company. So we work as one firm which is designed for what our companies need. We're not working to deploy in each country. And we can be very big. We have invested more than 2 billion in the United States in the last 24 months through our investee company. So these are big offices. The New York office, we have 20 people, which is super active for us. So I think that's the main difference. We fit mid-market, they fit large transactions. Then your question about Italy, will it be successful? Yes, I think that goes to the answer I said before about Italy in general as a country, but Italy as a company. We will be more successful in the rest of the world than we are in Italy. So in Italy, everybody sells pasta, everybody manufactures pasta, the entire road does this. Actually, your mother and grandmother produces in the kitchen fresh also. So, you know, we're competing even with one's mother. While when we open, we just opened in Abu Dhabi, this is important for the local economy. It gives a different opportunity there. We're opening in Shanghai next year, first Italy in China. Italy as a country and Italy as a company, our success is in the rest of the world. We have everything positive for us, less competition, more love for our products, and great appreciation for us as a country. So, you know, you mentioned Mattarella, which is obviously very important, but our ambassadors around the world are where the forefront of our future is as a country. You know, Elon Musk may think it's in space, we think it's around the world. And Italians, you know, we're many, we make a lot of noise, so you know, we are all over the place. Yeah.
How do you go around aligning what traditionally are management teams, which are family-oriented management teams, towards much more private equity style incentive structures, aligning equity, ESOPs, and driving a performance culture in an economy and country where people would generally say are not that brutally oriented towards such alignment of management and accountability?
A successful company, a successful mid-market European company has been built by a visionary. Somebody, he or she, had an idea. So, but we hit a wall. We hit a wall on size. That's why Italy has many mid-sized companies. And then there is another skill set, which is the professional running of a company. I'm not saying these guys are not professional. These people created the brand. But rolling out Italy on a global scale requires a lot of people, a lot of processes, it's a different thing than creating it. That's when we come in. But the key is to make sure that the manager understands the core of the business. You don't want it to become just there are plenty of professional managers which do not succeed in Italy. But the manager that succeeds is the manager who manages to understand the core of the company and globalize it. And then you align interest. The difficult part has been done by the founder. The difficult part has been done by whoever created the Ducatis of this world. They created over many years the legend, taking risks that a normal manager would not take. So that is what created the legend, the product, etc. Now that these risks have been taken, you are at a wall and you need scale. For the survival of these companies and for the survival of Italian businesses, you need global scale. You need global, you need to become global. We built a private label business out of 1 billion in Italy to about 3.5 billion leader in the United States. That's a completely different scale. you have access to the US market. So we need to build scale. Italy needs to build scale, and managers are the people who help us build scale. That's the role of private equity. We bring liquidity in the market, and we bring professionalism, which is right for the companies at this stage. It wouldn't have been the right of the company at the beginning. The founder of Italy, he was the person who created the product, and he's still our partner, so he still owns a big chunk of Italy. But our job is to do the next stage. That is why, you know, it's a great business opportunity. We make a lot of money for our investors. It's managing that shift. You need both to achieve scale.
I have a question more of a geostrategic nature, but related to your business. There is a lot of discussions about Europe to become more autonomous in defense and security. Do you see space for private equity businesses, not really in the defense or security business, which is, of course, very heavily dominated by government's decisions, but in related business? I'm thinking about, for example, space. Italy is one of the countries with the whole supply chain in space technologies, and plenty of mid companies or even family business with high technology and high technological solutions. Do you see space for private equity in that business?
I agree with you that Europe punches below its weight compared to the capabilities that we have. And the reason we punch below our weight as a size of an economy is because we have not had a unified policy, if you want, or unified sources of capital. Private equity brings the liquidity which is needed for projects and, you know, infrastructure. You know, obviously governments need to give a direction. So once we get this election cycle out of the way, regardless of whoever comes into power, all governments have it clear that building the economy and building Europe standing in the world and in certain economic key area is key. And private equity will support this. It will play a key plank. So investing capital through professional investors in a moment where Europe is wants to build bigger and better businesses, it's going to be very advantageous. I am very positive on Europe. So, you know, it's Europe's knowledge and ability and businesses are poised to play that role on a global scale, which we haven't had as much. And we have to do it together. You mentioned aerospace. Italy is one of the leading aerospace producers in the world, and you hardly see it. We are one of the leading pharmaceutical equipment, etc., and you hardly see us, because we don't have companies that are visible. But to our government and to ourselves, once you start looking, you putting them all together, you have an amount of knowledge and clusters which have global potential. And that is a big opportunity that we are going to look for, and that I think Europe in general has in front of itself. When you cannot market yourself, when it's difficult to understand, that is when there is value. People which market themselves, etc., you know, we'll see in the next few years how this power shift plays. And I think Europe and Italy especially will be a great beneficiary of this.
I have a very honest question to ask you. Anytime I go to any of the Credit Suisse, ex-Credit Suisse or UBS retreats, very private retreats in one of the beautiful islands either in Italy or very close to Switzerland, and I always happen to meet a couple of Italian couples, you know, and they're keeping most of their money in Switzerland. So there must be a reason that they are such wealthy people, and they are keeping businessmen won't take money out of the country unless you make them take the money out of the country for reasons. So what do you think? What are the reasons that, frankly, as a businessman, you think that you can keep the money in Italy? And that's. I mean, I don't want to know the reason. I want to see how do you plan to keep that money in the country.
So I invest mainly in Italy. So if you look at Switzerland, it's what was happening in the past in Italy, and people then continue to invest in Switzerland. Like now, it's free; you can invest anywhere. You can keep anywhere you want your capital. But if you look at Europe, this idea of looking at countries like countries where actually changes could happen is a little bit of the very much of the past, except on the European Cup, which we're going to win and bring home in the next few days. Then we are a nation. But apart from that, when you look at a company, at a successful company, the country is less relevant, almost irrelevant for us. It's like Italy is the size of California, just a little bit shorter of California as a GDP. It's like investing in Apple Computer and spending hours thinking, who is the governor of California? If you work at Apple, obviously it's important who picks up your trash, your education, your security, etc. But for Apple, it is irrelevant. For our companies, it is completely irrelevant, the Italian situation. What is relevant is the skill set and the ability of that company to conquer the world. And Europe has created that level playing field. So when you look, and in the newspapers, the still enjoy bashing Italy because it's a little bit more amusing. But when you look at the stability of the country, at the decision-making of our politicians over a long period of time, regardless of their side or color or whatever, has always been reasonable. If you look at Italy, our taxation system is competitive. Our companies are competitive. This idea that Italy there is any kind of danger doesn't exist anymore. Italy and Europe, we are nations which are united, and we're a founding member of the European Union. It is impossible to disentangle ourselves. And if you look at the strength of our banks, the people keep talking about Italian banks, etc. I think our two largest banks are both 5 or 6 times or 10 times Deutsche Bank as market cap. Italy has a very strong banking system now, and the weakness of the banking system, we're talking about events of 2007 and 2008. Now, we're not, every country has debt, etc. But, I have no worries about Italy whatsoever. And neither have our investors and their sovereign funds on a global scale.
I just want to chip in a little bit, because you say it's irrelevant where the company is located, but it does help when you have like-minded jurisdiction. And what the ambassador also said in his introduction, an open trade, and with the EU and Singapore, we have a free trade agreement, a new agreement on digital trade is on the way. I think those are also elements that are very crucial to continue to support and to be successful investment strategies.
Absolutely. Singapore is one of the, we've partnered with many investors from Singapore over the years in investments. We have many businesses operating here. It's a place of choice for headquartering some of our companies here, but throughout Asia we have headquarters, regional headquarters which go from China to Singapore, etc. But Singapore is it's a great place, and it's actually has an excellent relationship with Italy.
As you're one of the pioneers of private equity investment in Europe, what was your best investment and what was your worst investment?
Our worst investment has been rolling up pharmacies online. It's not our skill set. That particular technology and regulatory environment is not And there are many great investments. Basically, investments that fit the private equity firm. Private equity firms are very different. You asked a question before about KKR. What fits KKR may not fit us. What fits another private equity? When the private equity deal fits the private equity firm, then there is an alignment of the stars, and then things work well. We have our role. The management has its role. The founders have their role. The company has its role. You know, you can't. But the most important thing, and it goes to your question also on piloting, you know, this is a long-term business. You invest capital from your family, but also from endowments, pension funds on the very long term. You need to keep performing well. So it's not something that goes the best in the world. The most important is that the average is above, you know, the superior returns that our investors look for in ourselves. Regularity is the key of this business, compounding over a very long period of time. The reason for our success is that over 30 years, you know, all our funds have performed. We have always, performed regardless of geopolitical situation. And by the way, the geopolitical situation has no bearing on private equity. It's exciting when you read it in the newspaper every day. No bearing whatsoever. Actually, the worst year, the only year where nothing happened was 2006, where Pluto got demoted as a planet. We couldn't find anything else that happened that particular year. And in 2008, the world fell on its ear. So having peace, having geopolitical stability, etc., is not a key to return. It's building companies over the long term, which is the key, at least the key to our return.
Okay, and with that, we will conclude this session, but not without me sharing our appreciation for all your valuable insights, Mr. Bonomi. I hope you still will join. I understand you will leave on Sunday, so I would like to invite you to not go for this time for the Italian food, but maybe do an exploration for Singapore best foods. I will. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.